Now to the game that was absolutely stunning. And I said it on TV at all of our halftimes after it was done in a college football final. Penn State going to the Rose Bowl as 24.5-point favorites. Statistically and on paper, Paul, was the biggest upset of the year. That's part one. Part two, not to take anything away from UCLA and Nico Iamaleava and what happened. I find Penn State's loss to UCLA is inexcusable. And I don't want to hear about the Nittany Lions again as one of the best teams in the country until they win out. They got to win out because they've got Indiana. I don't want to hear about Penn State again until they prove otherwise that they belong in the conversation.
Well, the good news for James Franklin, it doesn't affect his record against top 10 teams. So he caught a break on that front. The bad news is it's not statistically the worst loss of all time. I think probably Southern Cal and Pete Carroll to Harbaugh and Stanford 15, 20 years ago goes down. But it feels like the worst loss I've ever seen. And I think for James Franklin, it is going to haunt him because what does he have to do now? He has to run the straight of Indiana and Ohio State. And what reason would any person have to think he can beat Ohio State and Columbus now? And to have to do that to stay alive, I think the bigger issue for James Franklin is keeping his job. And I know what the buyout is, and I know what his record is. But at some point, you have to determine, can we do better? And I'm telling you right now, Penn State can do better than James Franklin. It just feels like the gas is leaking all over the runway. And that game yesterday it changed the narrative from he can't win the big one to now he can't win the little one either.
Yeah, look, it'd be different if they went in there and it was a back and forth game and UCLA was, let's call it 2-2 on the year. Paul, UCLA was 0-4. They fired their head coach. They just promoted their offensive coordinator, Jerry Neuheisel, I think on Wednesday. And they were bad. UCLA was bad. And they were up 27-7 on Penn State. There's a difference between an upset. I know it ended up close. I know that. But there was a point, Paul, where UCLA was literally kicking Penn State's ass up and down the field.
They were. And, it got interesting at the end only because UCLA is so innate. But the fact that they could get on Penn State just tells you all you need to know. And part of being a good football coach or a great football coach is dealing with adversity. And James Franklin didn't do that. It happens, but it shouldn't. And it's not. By the way, Matt, it wasn't like they were in a hostile environment either. I've gone past parks on Saturday afternoon that had more crowd noise than what you had yesterday. So there's just no excuse for that, none at all. Until Saturday, UCLA had been beyond embarrassing. They'd already fired the coach. They lost when they 0-2 in the Mountain. There's just no way you could have ever seen that one coming. And now James Franklin has no more explaining to do because his credibility has been shattered. You had to feel for him a week ago, and he said, "Listen, but not anymore."
Yeah, what surprises me is I'll get into the parallel in a minute, but when you look at Penn State relative to Michigan a couple of years ago, everything was in place for Michigan roster-wise to go on a national championship run. They do. Ohio State a year ago, everything was in place for them to go on a national championship run, and they do. Do you believe, is Penn State out of it? Are you done with them? I'm done talking about them until they prove otherwise, but are you done with them in the playoff picture in this season?
Well, I think statistically you have to be, so how did Penn State end up being the team that so many people thought was the best team in the country? Unlike some of the Texas and Florida narrative, it looked legitimate, Matt. You'd have to agree that they had the quarterback coming back. Maybe, of course, they're the better quarterback maybe at Missouri right now, but that's nothing you can do about that. It looked like they had the roster. It looked like they had everything going for them. So I can't explain this because their predictions were not built on just fake hype. I think it was legitimate.
Yeah, I do too. And that's what's surprising about this. But what if I told you the national champion. They're primed for a national championship run because last year's national champion lost to a top 3 Oregon team and then lost to an unranked team and still went on to win the national championship. Now, having said that, the difference between them and Ohio State is the Buckeyes lost to Oregon, and then they lost their last game of the season to Michigan in a rivalry game, whereas this year, and they had no more games to play. Penn State has more games to play, which could end up in their favor. You can't do that. You just can't do that if you're James Franklin based on what's coming this year.
Yeah, listen, I think it would. I think it would be pretty foolish just to give them no chance because I mean there is a story here, and I still think fundamentally. But by the way, as soon as I say that Penn State could come back, can Clemson come back either? I mean, Penn State and Clemson were pretty similar coming into the season, except one looked a little better, and that was Penn State. But I think there's a narrow path. It's hard to believe, but but James Franklin maybe that. Yeah, just as I wrote, and a lot of people were thinking Kalen DeBoer was finished 5 weeks ago. I mean, it's a little bit hard to write anybody off in college football right now.
See, there you go, James Franklin. Your redemption story's out there to be written. Talk about it. Clip this off. Show it to the team. But right now, look. Katron Allen, Nicholas Singleton, Drew Aller. That was the trio that we thought was going to be good enough to get Penn State. And it might still, you just can't go lose on the road to a bad UCLA team.
You want this, you got that. No way, watch them walk right past you. Run fast while you have the chance. Don't speak, let them know.